The story opens in the harsh silence of an alien wasteland, where a young princess collapses onto the cracked ground, her breath shallow, her eyes dimming. Moments earlier, the royal court had watched as her stepmother, cold, beautiful, and merciless, declared her flawed, unworthy of the throne, unworthy of the family, unworthy of life. With a single command, the princess was dragged out of the palace and abandoned in the deadliest region of the planet, left to be erased without witnesses. She tries to crawl, tries to survive, but her strength fades, and for the first time in her life, she accepts the cruel truth she was raised to believe. No one will save her. But fate shifts when a human, lost, stranded, and entirely unaware of alien politics, stumbles upon her broken form. He kneels beside her, confused yet concerned, offering water and shelter with a kindness she has never known. Fear flickers in her eyes, wondering why a stranger from another world would care when her own people had cast her aside. She wants to warn him to leave, to run before the hunters return, but he refuses to abandon her, lifting her into his arms despite the danger he doesn't yet understand. In that moment, two completely different lives collide, hers marked by betrayal and exile, his driven by a simple instinct to help someone who can't stand on her own. What he does not know is that protecting her will pull him into a deadly conflict with a royal empire, a jealous queen, and an entire planet that believes the princess should not exist. And what she doesn't know is that this human, this unexpected savior, will become the first person to see her not as flawed, but as someone worth saving. The alien wasteland was a place where no living creature wandered willingly, yet the princess found herself crawling across its cracked, glowing surface, her strength fading with every breath. Only hours earlier, she had stood in the echoing throne hall as her stepmother declared her flawed, unworthy of the royal bloodline, a danger to the purity of the kingdom. The court watched in silence, some with pity, most with fear, as guards dragged her out and threw her into exile. Her flaw, a rare and misunderstood ability, made her different, not weak, but unpredictable, and the queen saw her as a threat. Now the princess fought to stay conscious, each heartbeat slower than the last. She thought of her father, gone too soon, and wondered if he would have protected her. A cold wind sliced across her skin, and she collapsed, convinced this was where her story ended. No rescue, no hope, only silence. But destiny had other plans, and footsteps, human footsteps, were already approaching through the dust. Miles away from any semblance of civilization, a lone human explorer navigated the alien terrain, scanning for mineral deposits and safe pathways back to his damaged shuttle. He wasn't supposed to be here. A malfunction had thrown him off course and stranded him on a planet he'd barely studied. As he trekked across the wasteland, his scanner flickered with an unusual life reading, faint, unstable, and close. Curiosity turned into concern as he followed the signal until he found her. A young alien woman collapsed beside a rocky formation, her breath shallow, her skin dimming as though her life was fading into the sand. Instinct kicked in. He rushed to her side, checking for injuries, calling out to her though she couldn't understand his language. He offered water, noticing how she hesitated, as if expecting harm instead of help. Her fear reflected years of abandonment and cruelty, but he didn't step back. Gently, he lifted her into his arms, determined to help. He had no idea that saving her would entangle him in a royal war he couldn't begin to imagine. As the princess regained consciousness inside the human's makeshift shelter, confusion overwhelmed her. She had expected death, not safety, not warmth, not kindness from a creature her people regarded as primitive. The human spoke softly, attempting to communicate through gestures, offering her food and water. Slowly she accepted, realizing he wasn't trying to capture or exploit her. When she tried to stand, her body trembled, and he helped her sit again, showing patience she had never experienced in her palace life. With time, she revealed her story through fragmented phrases and symbols drawn in the dust. She explained her flaw, the unusual energy within her that frightened the court, a power her stepmother feared would expose the queen's own plans for control. Tears she hadn't allowed in the palace finally escaped as she recalled being dragged away while the queen watched without emotion. The human listened intently, unable to understand all her words but understanding her pain. In that dim shelter, she realized that this stranger cared more for her life than her own family ever had. Their brief moment of safety shattered when distant vibrations rumbled through the ground. The princess stiffened, recognizing the sound instantly. Royal hunters, elite trackers, loyal only to the stepmother. Fear surged through her. Hunters were sent only for one purpose: to erase her completely. The human noticed her panic as she urged him to run, but he refused to abandon her. Instead, he grabbed his equipment and signaled for her to follow him deeper into the canyons. They moved quickly, but the hunters were skilled, leaving no time for hesitation. The human improvised traps using scraps from his damaged shuttle, buying them precious minutes. The princess watched in awe, surprised by his creativity and determination. When a blast echoed nearby, he shielded her with his body, despite knowing he was outmatched. His bravery confused her. Why would a stranger risk his life for someone deemed worthless by her own people? As night fell, they hid in a narrow cavern. The princess trembled, but beside her, the human remained vigilant, proving he was the only ally she had left. In the silence of the cavern, the princess struggled to understand the human's kindness. Every lesson of her childhood told her that weakness was punished, flaws were concealed, and trust was earned only through power. Yet here was someone with no reason to help her, offering everything he had. As the night stretched on, he tried teaching her simple survival strategies: how to identify safe terrain, how to appear invisible to the hunter's scanners, how to create signal distortions. She, in turn, shared knowledge of the land: hidden water sources, safe plants, ways to detect energy pulses used by the Queen's trackers. Despite their different worlds, their teamwork felt natural. At one point, she caught him watching her, not with fear or disgust, but with genuine curiosity and respect. His presence warmed her in ways she didn't expect, easing the pain of rejection that had shaped her entire life. Slowly, trust began to bloom, not forced by duty, but built through shared danger. Quiet moments and the comforting realization that she was no longer alone. While they moved through the night, a sudden ambush forced them into a corner. Hunters descended with electric blades and drones, and the human fought desperately but was quickly outnumbered. When he was knocked to the ground, bleeding and unable to rise, something inside the princess snapped. The fear, the humiliation, the abandonment, all the emotions she had buried surged into a powerful burst of energy. Her flaw, the very trait her stepmother despised, ignited like a blazing star. A wave of shimmering light exploded from her body, disabling the hunters, shutting down their drones, and leaving a wide circle of scorched ground. She stood trembling, terrified of her own strength, but the human looked at her with awe instead of fear. Kneeling beside him, she apologized for hiding the truth, expecting him to push her away. But he smiled weakly, touching her hand, silently thanking her for saving his life. In that moment, she realized her power wasn't a curse. It was her strength, and he was the first person who ever believed that. With the hunters defeated, they found temporary refuge in an abandoned outpost. The human treated his wounds while she watched him with growing concern. He insisted he was fine, but she sensed pain behind his forced smile. Sitting beside him, she confessed how she had spent her whole life believing she wasn't enough. Too different, too dangerous, too flawed. The human shook his head, telling her in broken phrases and gestures that she was strong, important, and worth protecting. His words touched something deep within her, softening the walls she'd built around her heart. They shared quiet laughter, moments of silence, and unspoken promises. He admired her resilience, she admired his courage. The bond between them grew, not out of obligation or survival, but from genuine connection. They weren't just two strangers thrown together by chance. They had become each other's strength, each other's hope. And though they didn't say it aloud, something deeper than friendship had begun to take root, steady and undeniable. The princess knew hiding forever wasn't an option. Her stepmother would continue sending hunters until the entire wasteland burned. Sitting beside the human, she made her decision. She would return to the kingdom not as a discarded daughter, but as the rightful heir. Fear lingered in her chest, but the human placed his hand over hers, offering silent reassurance. He promised to stand with her, even though he was just one man against an empire. His determination filled her with courage. They prepared for the journey ahead, combining her knowledge of the palace with his clever tactics. As dawn approached, the princess looked toward the distant glow of the royal city, feeling strength she had never felt before. Her stepmother had tried to bury her, but she had risen stronger than ever, because someone finally believed in her. Together, the human and the princess stepped forward, ready to challenge the throne and reclaim her place. Their story was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. In the end, the princess's story became something far greater than a tale of exile or survival. It became a testament to what happens when someone finally sees your worth, even when the world refuses to. The girl once labeled flawed now walked with her head high, not because her bloodline demanded it, but because she had discovered her own strength, her own power, and a partner who believed in her when no one else would. As she and the human approached the shimmering gates of the royal city, the silence between them carried more meaning than words ever could. Their journey had transformed fear into courage, loneliness into companionship, and despair into hope. No matter what battles awaited within the palace walls, they would face them together, because destiny had brought them together for a reason, and in that shared purpose, in that unshakable bond forged through danger, trust, and sacrifice, the princess realized something she never thought possible. She was never flawed at all. She was just waiting for the right person to remind her of her worth.